Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Skill Up. My name is Emily Spranger. The person who is running the show today is Dr. Irma Diaz-Martin, and I'm thrilled to be able to have one of our faculty come and provide you some resources, tips, or strategies for writing with a purpose. So she'll be covering the content today. Part of the great Scale Up series that we have offering for the month of April is we're focusing on writing. So today, Dr. Diaz-Martin will be sharing her ideas, tips, and strategies for writing with a purpose. Next week, we actually have another faculty member presenting the meal plan, and those are writing strategies as well too. I'll put the link in the chat in case you'd like to register for that event as well too. Today's session is being recorded, and we will provide a copy of the materials to you in an email about 24 hours after our live session today. And we do want you to ask questions in the chat, or you can put your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to those as time permits. So with that being said, I know we have students who are getting their bachelor's degree or their master's degree or their doctoral degree in the room, and they're very excited to hear from Irma today. So I am going to pass this over to Dr. Diaz-Martin so she can kick us off.
Hello, everybody. I am Dr. D, and I am so happy to be here. I'm excited to just share a writing strategy that I believe will help you, especially with organizing your paragraphs for those academic papers. First, a little bit about myself. So I retired from law enforcement after 22 years of service as an officer. So pretty much my entire career, I have been working for public organizations, serving our citizens. I started working with National University as a part-time professor about a little bit over 9 years. So my expertise do include criminal justice, homeland security, emergency management disciplines, and I strive to be well-rounded in the profession. So I'm also working with our doctoral candidates, including graduate and undergraduate. So I have quite a bit of experience working with our students, and I think this is an exciting opportunity for me to share with you what I have found that works for some of my students. Of course, everybody has a different style and preference, and this is just one of the strategies that I bring to my students in my classroom. And of course, you have ASC and the meal plan, which is upcoming in a future webinar. So first of all, one of the things in law enforcement, probably very similar to our veterans, is we want to KISS it. So we want to make it simple, keeping it simple, students. That is what the acronym is in my version. So keeping it simple. And that is my goal today. So I just want to make sure that we have a simple plan to follow, something that resonates with you and that you can easily recall. So in the future, you're able to use that. What we're going to address here is writer's block, a real phenomena, as we know. So I'm going to start with a few items, as you will see, as I would say, dealing with the whole person, dealing with how can we best prepare for writing? How can we be in that right frame of mind and surroundings? And then I'll walk you through some of the strategies that I have here. But first of all, I just want to take a minute if in the chat box you could at least if you could give at least two takeaways that you would like to take with you, something that you can use in your toolbox for writing.
Wonderful. And while people are posting in the chat a couple of things that they could use to put in their toolbox for writing, I did want everyone to know that Dr. Diaz-Martin did have some video issues and sharing her camera for Zoom today. So she's here and we're excited to have her. If there's anything that you want to put in the chat about some things that you want to take away as they come up, if it's appropriate. Oh, hints for the students and ways to perceive what students are needing, how to be clear and to the point, writing academically for research, studies, and papers, intentional sentences, writing clear, pertinent, organized, how to avoid bias in my writing. Lots of really good things coming up in the chat, Dr. Diaz.
Excellent. Looks like everybody's in the right class, so we are on the right path here. So I made a note of some of those takeaways that we're looking for today. But just a quick recap. So the learning objectives for today is I want students to be able to identify components of an academic paragraph, construct a well-organized academic paragraph, and then implementing IDEA, which is the acronym that I started using to help students so that you can create paragraphs. So those are our three objectives today. Um, This is the format of that we will be following today. So we will be discussing the planning for success, identifying key points in your reading, the purpose of a writing assignment, fundamentals, brainstorming or outlining, and then the strategy of IDEA. And at the end, I did create a template that you can use and you can keep for yourself and use as needed, or if you need to actually revise it, that would be excellent, something that you can have with you. So first of all, here we go. Let's look at planning for success. The reason I like to take a step back and discuss how can we plan for success is because it is all intertwined. As a person, when we learn, we're encompassing the whole person. We want to make sure that we're intentional in our writing. We have the correct or the right surroundings so that we're able to concentrate and study. And then as adult learners, there's special challenges. We have barriers, we have responsibilities. I can tell you from my experience as an adult learner, my any juggle, we are always juggling assignments with personal life and personal obligations and work. So let's see how we can actually look at helping ourselves achieve the best scholastically when we're writing. So first of all, we need to look at our energy and our health. Although this seems basic, what's the way that we can do this? Well, lifestyle choices, eating, hydrating, and sleeping. Very simple, right? We think that that's just the basics of everyday life. But yet, even today, as a part-time professor, I find myself reminding myself, hey, you need to take a break. You have not eaten in the last 10 hours, and it's really makes a difference. So I think as a reminder, when we're preparing to work on an assignment, that we always go back to that little reminders for ourselves. Let's take care of ourselves. Let's hydrate. Let's get the sleep we need so that we can actually become creative, because writing is a creativity, right? It's a skill, but it takes a lot of our creativity of our own work, our own style, and that takes a lot of energy. So if we can't make all of the great choices, at least some of the good choices, right? If you need to just take a break, that is always going to help you maintain that focus. The next topic here is surroundings. So what does surroundings have to do with writing, Dr. D? Why are you talking about my surroundings? Well, believe it or not, it has a lot to do with how we perform scholastically, mindful of our study habits. So are you a morning person or are you a night owl? What works for you? The great thing about asynchronous courses is you have access, or students have access to all of the material at any time, any day. So this gives you or the student the flexibility to actually say, hey, I want to study at 2 in the morning, or maybe you want to start late at night. Um, Remove those distractions, right? Sometimes some of us may like to work in peace without any distractions or noise. Others may prefer some type of soothing music. So find what best works for you. Be mindful of your study habits and concentrate on your reading and writing, because believe it or not, when we're reading for content, very easily when our minds start wandering, right? You hear the noise in the background, you have your family talking, you have the dogs barking, and it's just a challenge. So find a comfortable surrounding for yourself. Next thing is time management, which I definitely still am working on. Remember, we're talking about skills that we're developing, skills that help us with our academic or academia. So time management, right? Routine, Study sessions are excellent. Blocking off time for studying. I know this is a challenge. As adults, we always have 1,001 things to do in a day, right? And there's only 24 hours. But if this little tidbit of advice, if it really resonates and if it'll really help you, if you have a schedule, for example, do you prefer to work after work hours and then keep a maybe Monday, Wednesday, or a Thursday or Friday, or maybe those days don't work because you're too busy. Maybe Saturdays are your study sessions. So find a session or a time frame that works for you so that it becomes a habit, number one. And number two, you're already preparing. Mentally, we're preparing to start the research. Who knows how many resources are there that you would need to cover. So you need to mentally prepare, emotionally, physically prepare, look at your surroundings. And then having this routine will help you in gauging approximately how much time it takes to finish a assignment, or how much time does it take to actually read 10 pages or 15. So consider having some study sessions for yourself. Again, when we're writing, I would say, I never use the word never because never is a very definite, but most likely than not, as we're writing, it's a process. So we start one draft and then we review, revise, read, and then it'll probably be followed up by another second or even third draft, depending on the assignment. Your work pace, gauging your pace, how much can you achieve? I think I covered that with our time management, which is basically works hand in hand. There's a connectedness there to those two. But definitely make sure that you take a break. Even if it's taking a walk around the block, as I did a few minutes ago, I just had to get up and walk around and get some fresh air so that you know exactly how much you can achieve. And resources, last but not least, I always recommend the resources that National University has. Having taught for approximately nine years and some months, I can tell you that I personally witnessed how effective our ASC Center is, and how useful and helpful our librarians are. I've had students who are near failing come up and all of a sudden start going to these sessions, working with experts, and before you know it, they're definitely passing, and some even with a B, or higher. So definitely use all of the resources you have available. There's also writing labs, and you can have help with your proofreading, APA formatting. So I can't stress that enough. I'm always stressing this to my students. Anybody who's in my class will tell you that's the first thing Dr. D says is go to the ASC Center. Look for somebody who can give you that professional help. So here we are. We're talking about objective and subjective writing. So when we're talking about academics, and I'm focusing on when we have capstones, we have senior student projects, or we have our dissertations. All of those assignments are dependent on the research. So anything you write is supported by your research. So I'm going to focus on the objective writing style for this few next half hour, 40 minutes that we have left. And just a quick overview. So what is objective? It's academic writing. When we have a journal article that we pull up and we're reading and reviewing, that's a great example of academic writing, right? It's it is unbiased, does not have any opinions. It is strictly written based on the research. So the facts, only the facts, very structured, very formal. And when you're completing an assignment that requires this type of writing style, what we're looking for is critical thinking skills and analyzing. So how well can you use that research to formulate your thoughts, to support your thoughts through that research? Evidence-based. We use third person pronouns. Now, subjective, on the other hand, is our persuasive essays, personal opinions, biased, absolutely biased because it's what we want to share. It's from our view. In this type of writing, we're using first person pronouns and second person pronouns. Now, the reason I'm stressing pronouns, there's a reason for that. It is because at times when we're writing, we may become tired. We have that writer's block, and we automatically revert to a style of opinion, of bias, or we may even start reverting to writing as if we were talking, right? So conversational writing. So it happens to me. I have to catch myself and stop and reread and review. So a great thing is if you're using the objective writing style, these are your pronouns that you will be using. So most likely this is the writing that you're looking at. When you go into the subjective, I, we, my, you, and your, well, now as you can see, it's opinion based. So when you're writing your work and you're creating your work, it's just an easy way to say, hey, where am I? Where do I stand right now? Right? Am I being objective, or am I starting to move into that subjectivity? When you're writing in an objective manner, you're checking your pronouns, but you're emphasizing facts. You're emphasizing information that you have researched. You may even be presenting more than one side, right? What we can say is an argument or um, uh, an opinion, not an opinion, but a viewpoint from more than one lens. So you're leaving all of your personal feelings out and you're focusing just on that research, which is a skill because it's having to learn how to bring all of that reading that we have and making sense of it, and then communicating effectively in writing. Um, First of all, when you receive an assignment, extremely important, make sure you understand the requirements of the assignment. Each assignment may vary, and you may have various assignments in one course, and yet they may have different requirements. So before even uh, starting in that research process, starting with the brainstorming and writing, figure out what exactly is being asked of you and who's your audience. So, of course, if it's academics, your audience is going to be your professors, your scholastics. So you're looking at objective, right? Objective writing style. One of the things that I always stress with my students is, so what is it why do we write, right? We're trying to communicate, and there's what I call the five W's and then how. Um, this is normally referred to as the five W's. I do not remember exactly how comes into it. I don't know if it's the H, but when we talk about the five W's, when we're writing, what do we want to answer? You want to answer who, what, where, when, why, and possibly how. Reason I stress this is because many times I see the writing and it starts going into a cycle or a circle where somebody is writing and all of a sudden it just seems to be redundant. So this keeps a clear picture of what you're trying to convey. And then if you go back and review your work and you see that you're answering the questions that are needed for that assignment, for the paragraph, then you're right on target. If you find that you're reading your paragraph and it's not making sense, there's not a connection between the sentences, or I'm leaving out important details to even provide a full picture, it's just a tip on, hey, take a step back and let's go back and check and see how we can correct that, or what we need to add. Writing clearly and concisely. One of the things with writing is many times when you just write in a very simple manner, it comes across much better than when we try to convolute and make huge compound sentences, or they become run-on sentences or too many adjectives. So make sure you're clear and concise. Keep it clear, simple. Remember, keeping everything simple, concise. When I say concise, I'm really emphasizing base it on that research. And always use your in-text citations. Please use those in-text citations to show, number one, yes, you have conducted the research and what you're writing is based on your authors who are experts, but also to protect yourself against plagiarism, right? So whatever you write, whatever you create, you can cite with your name, and what others write, we need to give them credit. So just a little reminder. So let's see here. We're talking writing objectively and using passive. So how do we do that? So when there's different ways of writing objectively. We can remove the author and then we use a passive voice, or depending on the assignment, you will use this form of writing consistently or sparingly. It just depends on what your assignment is. If you're writing, for example, for dissertations, um, you will you will be highly dependent on writing in this manner. So when we're saying we're removing the pronoun, we're removing the personal, I conducted the experiment in a span of 3 months. What we want to write in order to remain objective is the experiment was conducted in a span of 3 months. So it's just playing with your words, right? Is how we place our words. The second one is I measured the results of the experiment in a timely manner. Better written for objective writing style, the results of the experiment were measured in a timely manner. By the way, measured, not measures. Just another reminder about our proofreading skills, that sometimes our mind will read something the first time, it looks correct. You may read it the second time and we may overlook our own mistakes. So make sure to proofread your work. Another way to write objectively, and this is based on the research, is we can use evidence-based. So when we focus on the evidence, we're remaining focused on the evidence, and the evidence becomes the subject. So, for example, the data shows, or the results demonstrate. So this is common verbiage that we can use for research, especially when you're looking at your, like I said, your senior projects, your capstones, your dissertations, everything that's highly cited and must be supported by the research. We can go ahead and show that we're writing objectively by using evidence-based writing. And here I just gave you another example when we say active voice and passive voice. If we go back to example 1, the data shows, that's how we want our work to reflect versus it is shown by the data. So one's passive, one's active. We want the objective active. And the same thing for the second example where the results demonstrate. A passive could be, it is demonstrated by the results. Now, these are just one example. There's various ways of writing something, as you know. So this is just one example here of a clause or a phrase here. Okay, so evidence-based, another way of writing it in an evidence-based manner. You will see this used a lot in journal articles. Doctoral candidates use it quite often, is when we're referring to the authors. So the sources is our evidence. And for example, these are, by the way, these are fictional authors. They do not exist. So if we say McDonald et al. Demonstrate how selling hamburger meals that target children with toys has been a lucrative business plan for becoming a billionaire, right? So in this one, we're remaining objective. We're giving the author, making them the subject. Another example, and the second one, Green suggests that researching a topic or concept a day will help with the research process. So you're using that a third person active. Okay, this is a great way to bring in this objective writing and demonstrating that you have that research to support your work. You can write objectively, even if you have a subjective statement. So if I have a statement that could be perceived as biased or opinionated, I can still change it according to my wording, right? So if I say it is a terrible idea, that sounds extremely opinionated and biased. But if we instead say there are disadvantages, that's another way of using this strategy. Or example two, it is clear that, right? We can say it appears that. So writing objectively, just make sure that you remain focused, that you are using as much as possible your evidence. You want to make sure that you are remaining objective and it's clear that the other person or the other thing is making us is what is supporting your sentence here. Another technique here is we can personify in writing. So when we personify, we can make, for example, the report, we can make the essay, we can make a item or thing as the subject of the sentence, right? And we're giving it some form of human characteristics. So for example, the report discussed return on investment and how to profit from consumer trends. So discussed is a human characteristic, but we can actually say the report discussed, and that would remain objective. A second example I'm giving you here is the journal article reviewed various trends in today's research. And then the final, the research data in its unassuming manner reveal the connection between emotions and action. So we know that data doesn't have any emotions, but we can actually personify it for the writing purposes and remaining objective here. So another part of the writing system, moving away from writing, we're looking at research. In order to create an assignment, in order to create a research-based paper or report, you need your research, right? So just a quick recap here. If you use your textbook, the audience is your students. You can go to your table of contents, summaries, glossaries, or even your subject index to find more information on your topic or your identified topic that you are intending to write about. If you use journal articles, they are written specifically for a field specialization. Now, these journal articles, some are 30 pages, some can be shorter, some can be longer, but they are very long reads and they're not easy to read. But one way you can extract information for your use, for your papers, is go to the abstract, read the background, read the results, conclusions, and recommendations. So this will give you a really good source of information that you can use for your papers, for your research to support whatever your statements are. And in a nutshell, it really helps you decide what works for your topic and what doesn't. Sometimes a journal article, you see a title and you say, this is a great article for my assignment. And once you start reading it, really isn't. So just a quick way to help you go through the reading. And of course, we have our news articles and magazines, not highly recommended, but there are times when they can be used. You're looking at the headlines, the introductions, and if there's any subheadings and the conclusionary paragraph, see if that will help you with your research. Again, we have National University librarians who are extremely well-versed with research and are always willing to assist. I know that when I'm conducting my own research, there's that little bubble or that conversation bubble. They are wonderful. You know, you just enter your information and you are online with somebody, with a real person that can walk you through the library or any resources that they can help you locate. You want to create a clear statement about the main points of your paper that are supported by the literature. So what do I mean by that? Well, you're conducting your preliminary literature and you're trying to find out what your concepts are or your topics or subtopics. So when you're reading, remember to keep that in mind so that you can make a clear statement on what your assignment is going to be written about and then it'll guide you with your research, and also it'll help you organize your work, which I will cover in the next few slides. Outlining and brainstorming. Okay, so here is a reason on why you want to take a step back, and rather than just dive in and start writing, on why sometimes you're conducting that preliminary research, but then you're taking a step back and creating an outline for yourself, or you can even do a brainstorming session. And the brainstorming session that I have here, or that figure, is just one way of doing things, right? There's more than one way that works, and you just need to find what you're comfortable with. If you're comfortable with outlining, you use your headers or your headings, and you list your topics, right? Your main topics, and then what are subtopics of the main topic. If we're talking about doctoral candidates, we're looking at concepts. So what are your concepts? And that will help you organize your work. Always take a step back, start with a brainstorming session. If you feel that you don't have the time, make some notes for yourself so that you can start organizing your thoughts, start organizing the topics you'll be covering, and that'll really help you save time at the end. So I'm going back to the paragraph. And why am I always talking about paragraphs? Well, the paragraph, if your paragraphs are not structured correctly, or if they're missing elements, then your paper's off, right? You have to be able to convey these thoughts in a cohesive manner where every sentence you're writing has a purpose. And that's why I said writing with a purpose. Every sentence must have a purpose, and there has to be an interconnectedness to a concept. So you want to make sure you have an introduction, an introductory sentence, and you're summarizing the main point of that paragraph. Then you need to support that concept or idea. You need to be able to add details to it. What needs to be known about that concept? So you add your supporting sentences. You're providing evidence to support your ideas. And then you need that conclusion or the ending. And in the ending sentence, you're restating that main point and in a way summarizing the content of the paragraph. So you're telling the reader that this is what that paragraph was about, and this is what we discussed. Or if that is too much, you at least need to tell the reader, I'm done with this section, and you can at least write a sentence that gives you a conclusion that says, I'm done talking about this topic, ready to move on. When you're proofreading your work, so I came up with idea, I just started jotting words down and trying to help my students. When you think of idea, think of your paragraph having that introduction, having the details, and having the ending sentence. And then you're looking for association. So when you read that paragraph, is everything associated to the main concept? Is it talking about the same thing? Or do you have 2 or 3 topics in one paragraph? So you need to decide what belongs in one paragraph and what needs to be moved to another, or if you don't need the information at all. So idea is really to help you come back to these main points here on your paragraph and what is required in a paragraph. Now, I have students ask me how long a paragraph should be, and I know we have experts in ASC, but as far as I know, there is not a set number. I have seen 2-sentence paragraphs, and then there's been 8 or 10 sentences. You want to make sure it's just a comfortable number so that the reader isn't lost in a paragraph that's just never ending. And by the time I get to sentence number 5, I'm already lost my concentration. I forgot what the paragraph was about. But you also want to make sure that it's long enough so that you do have those details. You're able to support your main concept. So I always say minimum 4 sentences, and I'm just taking into account an introduction, maybe 2 sentences that are supporting that thought, and then the ending sentence. That's what I always see in my students' work. That works for them, and that has really worked for my classes when I'm teaching, saying, hey, look at the 4 sentences, just enough to give you the structure of the paragraph and what you need. So let's put it together here. You have 2 paragraphs, one's on the left and one's on the right. And we're talking about idea that you have your introduction, you have details, you have an ending, right? So, and then you're looking at interconnectedness. So I'll give you a minute to read the left one, and then you can read the right paragraph, which is better written. So let's look at these paragraphs. The left side, they're both talking about parrots, and they're both talking about parrots being pets, right? Um, the left side, as you notice, if you start reading that paragraph, at least for me, I'm starting to get confused. Am I talking about parrots? Am I talking about dogs? Am I talking about them living outside, inside? I mean, what are we talking about, right? So this is an example of a sentence, of a paragraph, I'm sorry, that doesn't follow that idea concept. So where's your introduction? Where's your details? And where's the ending? Whereas on the right side, if you notice, you have the first sentence. Parrots are fascinating creatures found in various regions around the world. I think that's a great introduction. We're talking about parrots and we're talking about them being fascinating creatures. So I would assume that the next 2 sentences are going to talk about parrots being excellent birds, excellent pets, special talents, right? And as you can see, you're reading more here and you notice that, yeah, that's what we're talking about. The next 2 sentences are supporting that first one. They're talking about parrots being incredibly talented, right? They're great pets. They're very interactive. And then the last sentence sort of gives you that summary. Well, unlike some other pets, they can form strong bonds with their owners, trained to perform tricks, and which is adding to their charm and appeal. So this is telling me adding to their charm and appeal. Oh, okay, we're done talking about parrots and how great they are and their talents. So I know this left side paragraph, you may look at it and say like, wow, that is horrible and that nobody would ever write like that. But we tend to start writing in circles, right? We tend to go into this vicious cycle of maybe repeating ourselves or just starting different thoughts. Because remember, writing is our thought process. So as we're thinking, we're putting it on paper or typing it. But at the same time, that is our thought process, and that's where we need to take a step back and just review our work and organize it. So none of the work is bad. It just needs to be reorganized. And that's what I tell students. Don't delete your work. Don't just say, oh, this is horrible. I'm going to delete it. I never want to see it again. Actually, keep your work and then use it at a later time or use it in another section. Last one here is another example, final example here of I have these 6 sentences. I'm going to give you just 1 minute just to do a quick read and just think which one would you put as your introduction and which sentence do you think would be your ending sentence? And of course, the remaining would be your details or their supporting. Okay, so I'm going to move on here. I know it seems like a lot. I just tried to get a sentence that a paragraph that would have a topic of interest, and I think I got carried away. So I'm sorry. Okay, introduction. College life as an adult learner presents a distinctive set of challenges and opportunities that differ significantly from student experiences. No, please disregard that second sentence again. The opening sentence is the first one. And then, as you can see, moving into the details or the supporting sentences, that second sentence that should not be there, but it is there, is the details, right? It's supporting your first thought, your main concept. And of course, the others are details. And then the one giveaway for your ending or your conclusion, in conclusion, in summary. Furthermore, when we use these words, it gives us a clue, we're done. Or furthermore, there's going to be more. Additionally, there was more. So it's just those words that we can put in that can tell the reader, hey, I'm done. So this was another example on how you can organize a paragraph. And I just want to recap, is that writing is a skill, it's a process. First drafts, yes, you may have a first draft that is excellent, ready to go. But more likely than not, it's about a reviewing and revising your work. So be patient. Be patient with yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself and thinking, this is horrible, I'm never going to get this. It's a lot of practice and it's a life skill. I mean, you continue to evolve throughout life and learning how to write, learning different ways of writing, writing for different audiences. So remember to review and revise as needed. Every sentence must have a purpose. If you're starting to see that there's a pattern where you're not sure why the sentence is there, or you're reading your paragraph when you're proofreading and the first two sentences are great and then the third one is a little off, you're not sure, it seems to be unaligning your thoughts, then just take a step back and maybe take it and put it on the side, and then you'll find another place for it in your paper. If you have a timeline, write in chronological order. This really helps you organize your work. And remember, the writing process, you're organizing your thoughts. And the final step is review your work for grammar, spelling, proofreading. And again, the proofreading, one of the recommendations that you should do is reading your work out loud. So after you write your paragraph, read it out loud. Disclosure, I was unable to do this for some of the slides because I had noise in the background, but that again goes back to the example, your surroundings. How do you best work? How do you clear your working area so that you can do your best and give the best product? And of course, proofreading is part of the writing process. So in a nutshell, in a summary here, when you get that assignment, you're understanding the requirements. Make sure you're very clear on what's expected and what's needed. Conduct a preliminary research on the topic. And once you do that preliminary research, you want to create a clear statement. What's the main point about your paper? What are you going to write about? Create an outline. Go back to your research and start looking at those outlines, or use a brainstorming technique. And what you're doing is you're identifying topics or subtopics. If you're doing a dissertation, you're identifying concepts of your study. Each one of those has a potential of becoming a paragraph. So keep that in mind as you're organizing your work, that this is actually a template on what you're going to write. Use IDEA to guide your writing at the end. Set a writing schedule. Write your first draft, review and revise as needed, and again, proofread, and then use IDEA again to proofread your paragraph. So you may be going more back to the IDEA acronym or the concept of the requirements of a paragraph more than once as you're proofreading, reviewing, and revising. So this is a template that I created here, and there is a month's worth. So there's going to be 4 that I provided in the Word document that will be sent to you. And basically, this is to help you organize your work, organize your schedule, your study sessions, and then you're trying to find tasks that you're going to complete. So if I have 4 chapters to read, for example, I may want to go back and say, Monday, my task is to read 2 chapters, and I need to complete it by a certain day, and continue and so forth. Writing, I need an introduction, but Wednesday, I'll write an introduction. Um, Make sure that those assignments are uh, that they're manageable and that you're able to actually gauge your progress. So this is just one template that can be used. Writing template. Starting right away, what's your central theme statement after you start some of your research? And then you start identifying your concepts and your subtopics, right? I always add your sources there because there's nothing worse than having 20 pages of work and then having to figure out who said what. So that's another way of helping you organize your work, and then your checklist for idea. So all of this will be sent by email. Then this has concluded the information that I brought to you, and hope that that idea will help. And I need to see if there's any questions.
Yes, thank you so much. There was one that came up, but just a couple of things, just a couple of observations I've noticed. Could you, if you don't mind, if we can
Mhm.
scoot back to the checklist that we're going to send out? It
Mm.
doesn't matter if it's
Mhm.
the template, either one. Yeah.
This one?
So
Mhm.
what I love about this, these are going to be just resources that you can choose to use as a student if you would like to. But what I see here in terms of tips or strategies to help with writing is really, really forcing yourself to put your thoughts down in a very clear, cohesive manner. And I love that this is like a potential organization tool for someone to work on their writing skills. So thank you for this. And something did come up earlier in the chat where it said, how do you create time to complete work when you work long hours with a big family? And I'm going to let you answer this question, Dr. Diaz, but
Oh.
I hope that
Mhm.
maybe potentially that the one that was about the
Mhm.
one right before this slide about, yep, thank
Mhm.
you, measuring writing goals and things of that nature for research goals. Maybe this could be a way to help organize how much time you plan to do. And to me, I see this as like a checklist of being able to say, yep, I did this week. This is what I'm going to do. And then checking it off saying that you did. So maybe there's some energy behind completing these lists and helping organize. But to you, Dr. Diaz, just any kind of feedback that you might have about how you created time to complete the work that you need to do as an adult learner when there's lots of ands to our lives.
Well, first of all, I have to let you know that it is not easy. We all know it is a struggle, but tenacity, right? If you have that tenacity and you say, this is my goal, and you stick to that goal, before you know it, you will reach that finishing line. In between, what happens between the start and the end can be very difficult. What And this is not this, I am by no means recommending this, but it depends, right? It depends. You need to know yourself. When does everybody go to sleep? When will somebody stop knocking on my door here in my office? Or when will the dog stop barking? I live next door to my mother and I'm a caretaker also. So when does she not have appointments, right? So there are times that you have to decide what works best. Right now in my life, what works today did not work when I was completing my doctoral program. So today, I work much better starting 8:30 all the way through 2 in the morning. That is just me. I have to stop myself and say, okay, do not email anybody. Stop. And then that's what works. When I was completing my doctoral program, different time, different responsibilities, full-time job, teenage kids, which we know is a lot of work, and watching over them, making sure they're doing the right thing, and the doctoral program, extremely rigorous. What I had to do at that time was literally wake up at 2 in the morning and carve out those 2 hours or 3 hours before work started because I'm a morning person. Now, at that time, I was not a night person, but if you're a night person, you find other times to fit in your work. Lunch, breaks. I remember those lunch breaks were becoming study sessions, and it was having to leave the office or move away from where everybody was, from the talking and the chattering, and just having that discipline to remove yourself to find time for your academics. Now, like I said, it's not going to be forever. I tell my doctoral candidates that every time. It will not be forever. And by the time you reach your goal, you're going to look back and you will have so many skills and so much knowledge that you're not going to know what to do with yourself. So it is absolutely worth every day of stress and tenacity. So I wish you the very best, and I hope this template helps. I
Yes.
really do.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Diaz. And I appreciate your personal feedback on just finding the time to work through this. But I really do hope that this IDEA acronym potentially helps you, gives you some strategies or some things to think about as you're working on your writing, for whether it's a discussion, a response in a discussion question, if you happen to be in our class-based group model, or if you're on our individual side, working on those 8 to 10 page papers as you do as doctoral students. I hope that this help give you some oomph as you are trying to make sure that your writing is clear and concise and comprehensive. There is another session next week. As I mentioned, Dr. Stone Meredith will be coming to go over MEAL, which is just a different kind of strategy for writing. And then I will also include links to the Academic Success Center in my follow-up email to you all. I can't, as Dr. Diaz has mentioned, I cannot stress enough how wonderful their services are. There's also live sessions that you can attend there. There's asynchronous options that you can sign up for too. So for example, that person who's like, hey, how do I fit this into my schedule when there are no breaks at work? There are asynchronous sessions for proofreading and writing assistance where you submit your document and then get feedback a couple days after. So that's also another great resource. Dr. Diaz, thank you so much for coming today and sharing these strategies with us. And to all of our participants, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to help grow as a student or a scholar in your respective spaces. So until the next time, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.